Hello, my name's James Pikeway. Welcome to Podaholiks and DocTalk with Jenna Burton, and this week Zainab and James joining us as we talk about, well, everything that matters to us in the world of medicine and beyond. And as Jenna has often said, sometimes we talk medicine, sometimes we just talk life. You actually never know where this show's gonna go. This is DocTalk. Well, there we go. How's that, Jenna? Was that a good intro? What do you think?
That was the best intro yet, James, actually.
I practiced those, you know.
Yeah, he didn't have normally he has a little laugh that goes with it, but we didn't get that today.
I don't know. You never know, right?
I was actually wondering how you're going to pronounce my name, but you did a great job of it there, James.
Did I get close?
Yeah, it was really nice.
You know,
thank you very much for having me.
It's great to have you here. And as always, Jenna is really good at bringing on her friends and folks who are interested to talk to. And
No. James Pikeway, you are honoured this week. You are absolutely honoured because obviously we've had lots of friends in medicine, but Zainab, she's like one of the first ever friends in medicine that I've ever had.
Did you go to school together? How do you guys go back? What's the story?
Go on, Zainab.
I actually remember the very first time I met you, Jenna.
Yeah,
and I do. No, it wasn't in the library. It was because obviously, yes, we worked very hard, but we also did a lot of fun things at university, didn't we? Which was great. And we were part of this, it was called the Medics Pantomime. And it was a show that we put on every year. And it had it was a take on a famous story, like whether it was Aladdin or something like that. But then, it would also have like lots of like silly jokes and things in there. So it would be like written by the people who were organizing it. And I remember we were auditioning in first year and you walked in and I thought, oh, who's that girl? She's so pretty. And then you were good friends with one of my friends. And then we all got introduced and then we just got on like a house on fire. And that was like quite near the start of first year.
Yeah, that would have
we just became,
year.
We became fast friends after that.
Then I've got the part of Aladdin himself.
Yeah, we didn't need to share that bit.
And then later, a few years later, we directed the Medics Pantomime. We wrote it and all the rest of it, and it was called Jack and His Beanstalk.
That is hilarious.
You find actually that the medical community, especially during university years, but also going forward, that they're quite a tight-knit group.
Yes.
And everybody got to know each other very, very quickly throughout university. We were a huge year, but yet I could bump into any one of them now and still be able to pick up a conversation and have a decent
definitely
rapport. And we had a lot of fun, but we also worked really hard. So we would tend to be in university probably longer than a lot of other students, especially my friends that were studying English. I was always jealous of the English students because they went once a week and we would be there 9 to 5 pretty much Monday to Friday. Yeah. And saying that, we had a lot of fun as well.
Yes.
At both ends.
And funnily enough, when it came to our exams, we were in the library constantly, all studying together. And sort of, it felt like we were just going through the hard times together, but we just had so many giggles. And I think some of our best memories for some reason are from time spent in the library. And we just we still laugh about those days even now, don't we? So
that's it. And we found like a decent balance because we go to the library and then it would shut at 9 o'clock and then we'd all go for dinner somewhere. It never felt like a hardship.
Yeah.
That sort of makes the whole profession work, doesn't it? That sticking together and realizing that it's not all books, but there's a whole social side to it. And I think people forget that when we think of doctors.
And I think that definitely has rang true for me. And I'm sure it has for you as well, all through my career, where I think some of my closest friends, even now, I've met them at work. And it's probably some of the places where we've had the toughest jobs, we've done the longest hours, we've seen some really difficult things together or been through some difficult times. And then we've just got on like a house on fire and, we've gone on holidays together and I've lived with some of those people. And they're definitely some of my closest friends. So
I think what's nice is there's obviously only a finite number of doctors in the UK. If I take the UK as an example, so you often get placed in different parts of the country at different times of the year or over the years. So it's not unusual to rock up to do placement or a locum shift in a completely different area to where you normally work. And there's somebody that you knew from university or a friend of a friend. It's a really small network of people. And you find that from the nature of the job, people tend to like working. People tend to be very sociable and quite caring people.
Yeah.
Generally, as a rule of thumb. So everyone tends to get on really well and everyone's very supportive of one another, which is actually why I really enjoyed my university days and why I ended up loving working, especially back in.
Yeah. And I think, funnily enough, during the whole lockdown period as well, like for me, for example, I don't live with my family, so I haven't seen my family in a while. I haven't seen any of my close friends in ages. But again, going to work, even though it has its aspects that are a bit more, everyone's a bit worried about their own protection and things. But at the same time, there's something really nice about actually seeing your colleagues at work, and it feels like a family. It feels like you're seeing friends, even though we all haven't known each other that long, but we've sort of all bonded and everything. So I think we all actually get something really positive out of being at work and seeing each other as well.
Zainab, I want to jump into the work thing a little bit. How did you end up becoming you're in pediatrics, right? You're a pediatrician?
Yes.
How did you end up going that route? Jenna went a very different route. You both went to school and you got shared backgrounds. How did that happen?
Actually, for me, I knew I wanted to do it from really young. So even I think before doing my GCSEs, which we do in the UK at like 15, 16 years old, I sort of knew I want to be a doctor and I want to be a pediatrician.
Really?
So I sort of already had that in mind. So in my head, I was gearing up to, what GCSEs do I need to do? What A-levels do I need to do? And, all of that stuff. So, and I think I knew I loved working with children. I knew I wanted to be a doctor. I knew I wanted to do something that I felt was sort of beneficial to the community, and I liked the sciences and I liked maths. And I think from a young age, I had sort of influences from my family. So, for example, my mum's sister, my auntie, she's a big influence on me, and she was a genetic counsellor. And I got a lot of influence from her. Sometimes she used to take me to work with her, and I would sort of meet some of her clients and things like that, or go into the office with her and meet all her colleagues. And I sort of was quite inspired by her work with children in the community as well.
That's really interesting. I mean, and especially the fact that, pre-GCSEs, you knew where you wanted to go. Yeah. That's so rare. Jenna's shaking her head. She's going, I wish I'd known.
I still don't know. I'm 34 and I still don't really know what I want to do. But what James doesn't know is that pediatrics is one of the longest specialties to train for.
Really? I didn't know this.
And it's particularly difficult because you spend pretty much all your career as a med student and in your house officer years learning about primarily adult medicine. So you have to go back and effectively relearn medicine for children, because obviously there is some overlap, but still quite different. Why pediatricians?
Yeah. And I think it's funny because there's so many different aspects to it. I think people have different perceptions of what pediatricians do and what we're like. And, there's this perception that we sort of stand around playing with bubbles and, singing Baby Shark with our patients. And that's definitely true. We definitely do, have all these different techniques and ways of talking to children or to teenagers and things. But then also there's an aspect of it where it's like, actually, you see very sick children and that, they can be at a very crucial point of their illness where, it's very, it's really quite intensive. It can be sort of, life-threatening conditions. And I think people don't realize that, that's also managed by the pediatrician.
Yeah.
And, you're managing the patient, but you're also managing the family and the parents. And that's a huge part of it.
And that's why I always say that Zainab is my hero, because
you're mine, Jenna. So
there's two areas of medicine that I struggle with the most. One is dealing with parents, because obviously you're dealing with their most precious possession. Yeah. And if you've ever watched the program Scrubs, it is dealt with there. It's quite funny, actually, because
Scrubs is actually really good, isn't it? I do feel like it touches on a lot of things. Yeah.
Yeah. And I can't remember the name of the doctor that wasn't very nice, but his young son got ill and he became the parent that he hated. And it's so true, because they're just so precious that you're terrified for anyone to make the wrong decision, and you're questioning everything, and you're quite a difficult person to have, really, in a hospital. Yeah. The parents are difficult. That's it, full stop. You love them. You're nicer than all the rest of it, but they're hard work.
Yeah.
Similarly, it's always difficult when anybody dies or when somebody is sick. And the younger that they are, it's like an exponential curve of how difficult it is to cope with. And personally, I can't cope with really unwell children. Even when I've worked in A&E and there's been pediatric cases that have come in and I've really heard the screams of either a child in great distress, and I mean, their mother's been taken away from them from social services reasons, or because the child is really very unwell. I personally, I can't cope with that. And that's why I think Zainab is just one of a special breed, because I just couldn't do it.
Well, thanks for saying that, Jenna. But
do a lot of folks go into pediatrics? I mean, I'm woefully ignorant to this. When we look at all of the different areas people can go from their studies, is pediatrics somewhere that attracts a lot of folks, or for the reasons that you've described, in that it really does require a whole relearning? Is it an area that people kind of look at and go, yeah, no, not for me?
It goes through sort of peaks and troughs. And I think when I was applying, it was a bit more competitive, and at the moment it's not been as competitive. And I think there's a real we're really trying to sort of recruit people back into the specialty, and I think people are aware that actually it's really tough. The hours are really long, the training is long, and it does involve hard work and stuff. So I think in some ways it does, people are a bit more put off recently by it. And morale has been a bit lower, I think, recently. So there's been a big drive to really push, well-being and morale and sort of team spirit and all that kind of thing, probably in the last couple of years, from sort of, especially in this country, just to sort of make sure that people are happy at work as well as working hard and not feeling so exhausted and things.
When I think of pediatrics, I think back to my own kids. And as Jenna's describing things, I had a young son, my oldest son, when he was a baby. We're talking, he's like a year and a half old, bad asthma. So we would spend weekends, and it was always, so there's two things to this. First, he was an asthmatic son, and he would be admitted, and one of the parents always had to stay. So I would stay overnight and sleep on the uncomfortable couch. My wife would go home, and then we'd swap during the day. She would come back, and then I'd go home and sleep and do whatever. And it was horrible and I felt so sorry for all those doctors and me as this terrible parent when they would want to wake them up to do something, because every couple hours they would need to do SATs or temperatures. Now this is 22 years ago, right? And I would stand there and I'd say, over my dead body, you're waking up that kid because he's sleeping. It's like, what are you, nuts?
We definitely still get that. But like, you better not come in here and disturb him. Like, okay.
And then the other side that I remember, so there's that piece that you got to deal with. But the other side I remember, and I look forward to your comments, is that my children, even when we moved to the Middle East, it was always a Friday night at 4:30 that the ear infection would kick in, the throat infection, and it was like, why is it the weekend? And the beauty of it was our pediatrician, it sounds a lot like yourself, was just always there. It was always, just give me a call. And I'm going, but it's a Friday, and just give me a call. If you need to call me, just give me a call. And they would always pick up. And I just thought, wow, that is dedication.
Yeah. I'm sure that reigns true for, not just in pediatrics, but I think, generally, I think if you're going into this career, you are quite a dedicated type of person. And I think we do often, we go beyond our hours. We go sometimes beyond our expectations a little bit, obviously within a safe limit, but and I think it's not because anybody asks you to do it, but you do feel that you want to do the best for your patients or for their family, and make it a better experience for them.
I've got to interject here, because what I find the most crazy is Zainab has a tendency to take on everything and say yes to doing everything. So currently, obviously working in the NHS, it's a limited resource. Not only is she approaching a consultant paediatrician, but she also manages the entire rota, unpaid, additional extra that she does. She gets called up in the night. I can't come into work the next day. She either ends up covering or has to find cover. It's just, that's a whole piece of work that should be done by one individual on their own. And she does that because of dedication and because she wants to make sure that the posts are filled.
That's incredible.
But it's fine. It's not, I do it with other people. It's a team thing. So I don't mind doing it, to be honest. I'd rather feel useful, especially at a time when everyone is working so hard and going beyond what they usually do. So yeah, I feel like I have to do my part.
We're in this COVID, lockdown globally, Zainab. How is that affecting what you do? Because I'm reading, across the world on children and medicine, and you've got so many things, from vaccinations to burns to accidental poisoning because of cleaning to domestic violence. How's your job changed over the last 2 months?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it's completely changed in some ways, and in some ways it's not changed at all. It's changed in that, we've changed our, how we see patients, where we see them. We've had to change literally, where they come through the door. There's a whole new system of triaging people and, putting, children who might be infected with COVID or the infections in one place, versus other children in another place to try and keep them all separate. And then, we've actually created a whole different hospital site on where I work.
Really?
So that they, so that other children who are completely free of any infections are sort of kept in there. So it's all a bit more complicated, but we've got into it now, and we sort of have a system. And then we've seen sort of in general, I think the number of children presenting to A&E, for example, in my trust, and I think probably across the whole country, has gone down quite significantly.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing from your perspective that you're getting fewer?
Definitely both. It's nice that people who sort of, because often I think you see people coming to the wrong places and using the NHS in the wrong way, and people coming to A&E where this the child has simply got a very, very simple viral cold or something that didn't really need to be in the emergency department in the first place. But so it's nice that some of those people aren't there, but then actually. I do worry that, that there are children who are being kept at home longer than they need to be because people are really afraid to come into the hospital. Yeah. And actually, we don't want them to come in unnecessarily, but we definitely still, want to urge parents to follow their instincts. And if they're really worried that their child is significantly unwell, we're still there 24 hours a day, and ready and waiting to see children and treat them in exactly the same way as we always did.
Is that a hard part, Zainab? Because how do people know? How do people who are educated in medicine, apart from that gut instinct that you have as a parent, know when it's appropriate to bring somebody in and when isn't? Likewise, the parent the cold, it's because they're frightened for their children, and they don't realise the negative impact that has on the hospital, and that it's not an appropriate place to care about trying to educate.
Yeah, we've done work like closely with the GPs to get information out to parents, and also there's been lots of public education sort of leaflets and things that have gone out to all parents to say, look, these are some of the signs. This is like red. This is amber. This is green. This can wait. This can't wait. Please go to A&E immediately. To just say basically that we're still here. These are still the worrying features that you still need to come in for. And I think if parents aren't sure, there are still those services, whether it's ringing, calling into the GP or 111 services or whatever you have in the UAE, still seeking that advice to make sure that not going to hospital is still the right thing to do in that circumstance. I think it's always important to ask, especially if you don't have a medical background, that's exactly what we're all here for. And I think now things have changed in that there are more telephone consultations or video consultations. So, we still do our best to keep people safe at home, but still by making sure that they are safe to be at home, if that makes sense.
How do you deal with this, in a sense, the barrage of information that's available to people now? So not just in England, but if I'm on the news, if I'm looking at my computer today, I'm seeing stuff coming out of Australia, the US, Canada, France, England, and those parents are then coming to you saying, well, I heard, or this is what they're saying, and this is not what you're saying. And how do you deal with just, the Dr. Google that is fueling, in some cases, paranoia?
Oh, yes, definitely. I mean, but that's not new. I mean, that's always been there. And I think that's just something that I think, it's part of our job, I guess, to be challenged and to make sure that we're always questioning ourselves and to make sure that we're up to date with information. And, sometimes people are really dead set on, I want this investigation or whatever. But I think we just need to unpick it. What are they really worried about? Is that something that's a sensible question in this circumstance, and just addressing their concerns and sort of talking it through. And I think probably in pediatrics, we are quite good at communicating in general, and we tend to have lots of chats with parents and try and make sure that they're sort of, that we reach a good sort of understanding, and where we can, we will try and, answer any of those questions, or, if we don't have the answers, we'll find someone who does. So
it's funny, but I used to liken it to being a politician at times, because you'd always have to defend everything that you said or anything that you wanted to do.
Yeah.
You get questioned by parents, family members, the patients themselves. And then, as Zainab says, it's about finding out, well, what is it that they're really worried about, and then re-educating as to why you want to do something.
Yeah. And also, we're only human ourselves, aren't we? And I think we carry a lot of burden, actually, because our jobs carry a lot of risk with them. And every time, I'm discharging a patient, or I'm saying, oh, no, I don't think we need that investigation, I really question myself, because I need to be sort of quite sure about that decision, because otherwise you've taken the responsibility and you're saying, well, I'm the expert here, or I know a bit better than you do. But actually, you need to make sure that you do, because that otherwise you wouldn't be able to sleep at night, I think.
I know Jenna's often spoken about this, that you as doctors are in this unenviable position, in that because you have this MD behind your name, everyone figures you know everything. And And like you said, sure, you read and you keep up to date and you talk to people, but you can't know everything. And but you're expected to. You're a doctor, but you're the doctor.
Yeah. And also, you might ask me something and I might suggest, oh, I think we should do this. And then my colleague might say, oh, no, I would do this. So, and I think that's okay as well. Within a certain limit, it's fine for everyone to do something slightly different, as long as it's all sort of safe, and most people would agree with most of those things, if that makes sense. So I think, we are all human, and we're allowed to make slightly different decisions or have a slightly different way of doing things, as long as we're not missing the most important things or the most serious things in that way, and not over investigating as well.
Yeah, me and James were talking on a podcast, I think it was 2 days ago, and I was saying about doctors, that the foundation of being in medicine is being safe. So number one, you've got to be safe. So you'll find the majority of the doctors, or 99% of them, are safe physicians. But the next step is about optimizing your treatment. So Zainab, having that scientific background, but also having that artsy background that you and I have spoken about, James, as well, creating what's right for that individual patient, will be slightly different to maybe what I would say, maybe what our friend Sultana would say. Everyone has their own way of optimizing care, and it doesn't mean it's right or wrong, it's just different. Yeah. Which is why you have to, if you're in the luxury of being able to find the pediatrician or the GP or whoever it is that works for you, you should find the one that suits you as an individual.
Now, just as an aside here, who's Sultana? Is this another person we need to be talking to on the podcast? Because
she definitely is.
All right, there we go, Jenna. We've got another guest.
Yeah, I did invite Sultana as well, didn't I? But she couldn't be bothered getting up so early in the UK.
Okay, we'll have to do a show at a later time. Real quick, it was interesting because Jenna likened what you do as a pediatrician and what you do as a doctor generally to being a politician, and I was thinking it's kind of like a detective as a pediatrician, because you're listening to the children talking and describing things and machinating through things, and then you've got the parents who've got fear and they've got their things that they're talking about and they know their child, and then you, unlike so many other medical situations where I might go to the doctor or my wife might go to the doctor, there's times we just don't talk to our friends about stuff, but parents are always talking to other parents. Oh, this happened to me and this happened to me and this was my daughter. So you've got the child, you've got the parent, and then you've got the extended friend group that's helped to inform them. That makes your job really interesting in a sense, as you unpack everything and then the politics of being very diplomatic have to kick in as well.
Yeah. And also sometimes I think it's like being a politician. Sometimes it's sort of being a bit of, an actress, or, you have to sort of put on a bit of a show or put on your happy face when you've just seen something really sad, but then you can't bring that to the next person because it's nothing to do with them. So you're sort of like, okay, hello. So I think, there's different ways that you have to sort of present yourself. But you definitely have, I think that's the same with, and it depends on different areas that we work in, or, there might be, patients who are slightly a bit more from an affluent area and are like, oh, well, I've had a chat with, my friends are these other pediatricians, and I've had a chat with a private pediatrician, and they said I should come here now. And so they've already got about 5 different opinions by the time they've come to me.
Do they bring it all with? Do they bring the case files with you, or and the stuff that they've talked about, so you can see what those other doctors were saying, or do they just give you their? It's kind of like the Thousand Whispers game.
Yeah, it's usually verbal. It's usually like, oh, I was told this and I was told that, and sometimes and sometimes they've been to different hospitals many times, but now they've come to this one. So, okay, that's really, now I have to unpick the fact that you've had half of this stuff investigated somewhere else, and I don't have access to those records, but I have to try and figure it all out again. Yeah. So that's always very challenging.
And with the challenge of working in the NHS, Zainab has the issue of resources. So somebody tells you, I've had X, Y, and Z investigation, but I don't have the results and I don't have access to the results. It's not necessarily as easy for Zainab to say, right, we'll just order those tests again. You can't be as easygoing about it. You have to consider there's a cost implication, and patients get access to what's appropriate for them, not what they necessarily just want for the sake of it. It's all about working out who needs something the most.
Exactly. And I think, exactly that. I think we don't work on the idea of, I'd just like to have, a CT scan or an MRI scan. It doesn't really work like that. It's more about, us using our clinical judgment and obviously taking people's concerns into account and seeing what they actually need at that time. And what's, what's safe for them to have, and what, everything's got its own, side effects and difficulties as well. And, if there's somebody else who needs that more, then actually that person's going to get it, not them. So I think we do have to really be careful with resources.
That's
and not
tough. It's really tough. And I'm not dissing the NHS, much like the Canadian system. I'm from Canada. So, socialized medicine works. I'm a big fan of it, when especially we live in Canada so close to the US, and I've got a relative who I affectionately call a medical refugee, because she's American, but she could not go back to the States because she could not afford the healthcare at this point in her life. And I keep telling her, I say, you're a medical refugee. That's all you are. And they laugh, and then I think they kind of realize, you're right, because the system works. Is there, this is a funny thing, because Jenna's obviously got young boys. I've got older boys, and we kind of have this discussion in between all the time, because our kids are about 20 years apart. And it's always interesting that even though the children are 20 years apart, you see all these stages they go through. And I always find it really weird, because when we went back to Canada, and I can't remember how old my last time when we visited our pediatrician, but my children were well beyond pediatrician age, and they were at the pediatrician, and it was hilarious. I'm sure they were like young adults. They probably like 18 years old, and they're at the pediatrician. I'm going, why are we at Dr. Legault? And he's like, oh, it's great to see you guys. And he's, and it's just carrying on because he's seen them. Where this is all leading is, as a pediatrician, is there an age group that you, obviously you like working in the field, but is there an age group that you're more fond of, or that you really look forward to meeting that age of child, or that developmental stage of child? I
think, do you know what's nice about pediatrics is what I like about it as well, is the variety of, all aspects of it. So, in terms of medicine, it's not, I don't just do one specialty of pediatrics, so I will see a bit of everything. And the same with the ages. I really like all the ages. I probably like the really little ones, sort of
babies, or the.
Do you know what? It's difficult to say, because the under fives. I would say, like the toddlers. Yeah. They're just absolutely hilarious. The babies, I love giving a little cuddle to if I can. But then the older one, the 7 and 8 year olds will just sometimes come out with something really funny. And sometimes I'll have like a good chat with the teenagers. So I think I like it all, but probably if I had to pick, maybe the slightly younger ones.
I'm always so jealous, because Zainab's sending me photographs of bunny rabbits, little dogs, different animals on her ward. And then you can never get away with that as an adult ward. How on earth have you got these farmyard animals in your workplace?
How do you get away with that? That's incredible.
Yeah, there was, so we do, a lot of places have sort of like a therapy dog that will sort of come around and say hello to everyone. but I worked in a place which this hospital in London still has bunny rabbits on the ward. And it's absolutely lovely. I mean, we loved it. I definitely loved it because I love animals anyway, but the children really loved it. And I think everybody gets different things out of it. So, the younger children would, enjoy giving the bunnies a little stroke, and, it's entertaining for them, especially I think the children who were there quite long term or have, they're going to be admitted for quite a while. Sometimes I would tell them before they've even been admitted, right? Well, we've got some bunnies upstairs that, don't need to be too upset. But, and the teenagers sometimes with sort of like mental health issues and things like that, sometimes it would really give them a focus and something to do as well while they were admitted. So that was quite nice, actually. I think it had like loads of benefits for everyone. It's
almost like rethinking the hospital system a little bit just to make it more friendly and accessible. And
yeah. And I think that's so important. And particularly in pediatrics, I think we're always trying to improve on things like that. And that's why, things like play therapists are like a crucial part of our team. Absolutely crucial part of our team.
This is a new career for me, Jenna. I've never heard of a play therapist.
Oh my God. Yeah. Where would we be without the play therapist?
Don't get too excited. James, every time I have somebody on, he wants to do one of the jobs. So this... I'm sure he would be great at play therapy, but this is just one of many.
No, this one sounds like the one for me. This is a legit career.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, well, there we go.
Look, he's actually writing it down.
I am. I'm going to be looking this up as soon as we're done.
It's a balance, isn't it? Because obviously the best environment for someone that is ill is to be in a purely clinical environment. Most hygienic, it's going to be, again, medically optimized. However, we're not just robots, although our body might function in some ways as a robot. In the other sort of end of the scale, we are human beings with thoughts, with emotions. Our brain and our mental wellness has such an impact on the physiology day to day and for getting better and improving that you've
absolutely
tapped into that side, haven't you? And especially for young children that don't understand why they're there necessarily or why they home.
And I think also, for us, we try and do what we can manage sort of, in a way that's more beneficial to the child. So some of that might be giving them treatment at home. And, we'll facilitate that with like community services, and then we'll just maybe see them, once a day or do some telephone reviews or, so actually it's trying to, if we can provide the care at home, we will try and do that as well, because I think it's a better environment for the child. And, they get more sleep. The parents get more sleep, like you mentioned about sleeping on those uncomfortable hospital beds.
Horrible.
And, it's really, we try, it's important to look after their parents as well, because they're probably already not slept in days by the time they've seen us and they're exhausted and they're panicked, and, it's taking care of them as well.
Yeah. Just memorize it. Just as you brought that up, it takes me right back to that the Montreal Children's Hospital, and I just remember it's like a memory I'd rather not have, but I can smell the hospital. And we got exceptional treatment, but it was always the middle of the night. It was like, how is this possible?
Yeah. A nightmare. And often it's horrible because children tend to sort of get worse during the night, don't they? I think everything looks worse when you're at home, and everything also looks worse sometimes when they're in the hospital. And sometimes they just, they tend to, children with asthma just tend to have, more difficulties with breathing at night and things. And, so I think it's really stressful because, again, everybody's getting more sleep deprived.
No, absolutely.
And I think,
Sorry, Zainab, go on.
Oh, sorry. No, I was just going to say, picking up on your point earlier that you made about how sometimes people can be sort of really difficult. And obviously we know it's because it's their own, worries and things. And, sometimes they can be a bit aggressive or angry or shouting or, and I think that can be really hard to take sometimes, I think. And I think we all deal with that in all professions across medicine. But again, sometimes I just try and remember, obviously it's not nice to be, verbally abused and things like that should never be allowed. But, sometimes it's just taking that moment to reflect and think, gosh, they're going through like the worst moment of their lives. Like you said, James, you're still recalling that. Yeah. You can still smell the hospital now all these years later. And it's, you're seeing people, completely distraught and exhausted. And it's, if you're having a bad day, they're having a really bad day. So, I think it's just bearing that in mind as well.
It must be
That's
pretty
it.
gratifying though at the end. And Jenna, you can jump in just a second. This is just a statement, but it must be pretty gratifying when those same people who've been maybe a little aggressive and angry, and then they come back to you after and say, look, sorry, I got to apologize for that outburst. And, whether they've realized it or someone with them is saying, hey, that was a little bit out of line, and they kind of, need the tweak, but that must happen all the time as well.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it does. And I think, to be honest, like that little, we don't do it for the gratification or for someone to say thank you. But when people do, it really means a lot, and it's really, really nice. Or, just that, to be honest, I don't even need to say it. Sometimes you can just see, that the child is better, that they're much calmer and happier. And it's like, that's totally why we're doing it. So really rewarding.
Jenna, you wanted to jump in.
Oh, sorry. No, it was actually something totally different.
Awesome.
Sorry.
Still in the field of child health. But there was a question that I'm curious about, because obviously it's Ramadan at the moment, and I haven't had much to do with children during Ramadan. I don't have the same access to child health as you, Zainab. Do you find that young children, when they're starting to adopt and observe Ramadan, that can be a challenging time for them as well, medically?
Yeah, I guess, those kind of ages they're quite tough anyway. And we definitely see, I haven't seen that many difficulties necessarily related to Ramadan, but I think that time, like that teenage period, I think is really tricky. And, that's definitely a time when we see a dip in compliance with children taking their medications. There's all sorts of hormonal changes that are going on as well, which will affect, their illness itself sometimes. So I think, then there's sort of difficulties maybe with anxiety that they might have, or, being body conscious and, all these things. And they tend to get more influenced by their peers and their friends, and that's who they want to be with, and not, it's more difficult to get through to them otherwise from sort of medical professionals or from the parents. So I think that, that period presents all its own challenges, and it can be really, really tricky, that whole adolescent period. So
it's more just the Ramadan is an added thing to what is a difficult.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So although that they are ready to start doing it medically, it's no problem. But if they have other underlying medical conditions, it can be a bit more tricky. Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess, things in particular where it'd be more tricky, same with adults, is, things like diabetes and that kind of thing. But again, it's about, catering it to that child. And if that's a child who wants to sort of observe, fasting and things, it's about, having a chat with their specialist and seeing if that's possible and how it can be done.
Anecdotally, I just want to jump on the diabetes thing for just a second. Anecdotally, youth and diabetes is something I hear a lot about, and I sometimes wonder if the numbers are really going up, or are they getting better? What do you notice from your practice with youth and diabetes? Is it really getting, becoming a even more serious an issue?
Do you mean type 2 diabetes?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it is becoming more of an issue. I mean, obviously in children, I see more of type 1.
Okay.
So that's what I see sort of all the time. But I think in general, childhood obesity is a big issue. So we know that, these children are more at risk of these illnesses when they become adults, which is why I think there's a bit of a drive now to try and support families and tackle those issues earlier. But it's really a sensitive topic, and it's it's so tough to even bring it up.
I know. I lived in that world with both of my boys and we struggled with it. I know I've talked a little bit with Jen about this, but my boys were big boys, and one of them lost 100 pounds, and I'm so happy that he did that. And he kept it off, which is great. But and the other one is a much slower at doing that, because he's all and we kind of thought, what are we, bad parents? And short of putting a padlock on the fridge, but they've come back to us now and said, we were kind of stupid, and not we as parents, but they were stupid, because I said, look, you don't need a second helping, you don't need this, but they, how do you stop them as parents? Short of restraints, and they've had to deal with that now. And I still to this day kind of go, what more could we have done? What the saving grace, Jenna, you will love this one. And Zainab, this is for my youngest son, what made him decide that he had to do something. And it's not hearing about diabetes and all these things. It was a fitness instructor, Marcus Smith, actually. My youngest son was on a rowing machine, and he was a heavy boy. And he sent me a picture, but I showed it to my son. He sent me a picture and said, James, you got to do something. Your son is obese. And I showed it to my son, and he just looked at it and he said, that's it. That picture is horrible. And it was just him and that was the catalyst for him to lose 100 pounds that he's kept off to this day. But as parents, it's like, what do you do? Yeah. It's like, cause I know and I read and I see it, but how do you activate it? And that you come in the middle ground there all the time with parents and kids, and I don't know how you do it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm not a parent myself, so I don't know how you both do it. You're both my heroes. I think it's so tough, and I'm sure you're questioning yourselves all the time. Like, is this the right thing? Is this the right thing? So, not easy.
You can even go the other extreme. I mean, I really believe in trying to get in good, healthy habits from a young age. But at the same time, you can almost push it too far. I've got Zainab knows really well that chalk and cheese. One is super active, will eat anything but stuff when it's full. The other one is constantly at 2.5, opening the fridge and bringing me milk that he just wants constantly. Going in, he'd seen on television about a lollipop. So he was going on and on the other day about having lollipops.
Yes.
And I start to panic, and I think, oh my gosh, he's going to be on the childhood obesity program. I can feel it. Yeah. You know, he's not big by any stretch. He's a sturdy chap compared to the other one. But I get paranoid and really worried. And I think it's almost like we've got to let them be who they're going to be as well. So it's great to encourage them to eat healthily, encourage meal times, encourage exercise. But ultimately, they are very different, and you can't force them to fit into a mold that's not them either. So it's, there's what's right, what's wrong. It's just about finding that middle ground that suits and is healthy, I suppose.
Yeah. And you just need that healthy balance as well, don't you? I think completely restricting them from anything sugary is not necessary. And I think that's fine if that's your choice, but you don't have to do that completely.
Well, I have to tell you a story. My mother-in-law was a nursery school teacher, and she, Judith, and she obviously had a collection of children, and one of them was never allowed by the mum to eat sugar, nothing sugary, she was only to eat healthy. And she said, I'll never forget this child. They had a Christmas display up and the chocolate buttons on the display, and she was so desperate to have some of the sweets that that she would pick off the chocolate buttons with the glue attached on the bottom and would be eating them off the wall. And she said that was her reminder, you've got to have a healthy balance. Because if you deny them completely, they will go crazy for stuff, and they'll start to pick it off the wall with glue.
My goodness.
I got to share this. I got to share a great personal story for you with, this is my grandmother. This is my grandmother, Sylvia Pikeway. She passed away several years ago. What an epic grandmother though. And, wonderful Ukrainian lady. And she lived in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. That's where all my family's from. And we would go visit my grandmother for the summers. And we would rock up at my grandmother's house, and she'd say, well, what do you want for breakfast? You can have anything. And I said, what do you mean you can have anything? So I got donuts. I've got, if you want to have cereal, you have cereal, but I've got, and they weren't just donuts. They were sugar covered donuts in the bread box. And she bought them for breakfast. And so my brother and I, for the first week, we're eating donuts for breakfast. And then she said, what do you want for lunch? And we go, we want soda. She go, help yourself. Have as much as you want. Go get Dr. Pepper, Coke. Just have by week 2. We're not eating donuts and we're not drinking soda. We're having cereal and at lunch and all of the fact that we could have everything is gone because it was there and it was always available, but you just didn't want it anymore because it wasn't.
That's interesting.
And it worked. And it just, but to this day, grandma was the place to go because we'd say, well, dad would be unhappy because your dad's not here.
Yeah. We had, we definitely had the same with my granddad actually. And he was the same with all my younger cousins as well, and would definitely sneak everyone little treats when the parents weren't looking. we loved him for it. So.
But I think, to this day, my children, when they have the option when you go out somewhere and they you go to a restaurant, they have the refillable drinks and that, they only opt for water. And, if you get a burger or something, because they still eat that stuff, they just don't eat a lot of it. They'll opt for no fries. They say, oh, well, you get an upsized drink with that, and say, well, I'll just have water, please. And we just look at that and just think, wow, that's just fabulous. Just fabulous.
But I don't remember the statistics surrounding this, but I know that France has got a very low rate of alcoholism, and they believe apparently because they believe, or certainly not, maybe not alcoholism, binge drinking. They actually have a low rate of binge drinking in other countries like the UK. I mean, the UK love binge drinking.
Terrible,
And they believe it's because from a very young age they will allow children to have a small glass of wine with their dinner, and therefore they learn to appreciate how to drink, how to have something that is the forbidden substance and have it as part of their daily life without it needing to be an extremist type thing. I think it's the same when we're referencing sugar, treats, exercise as well. We've talked about that before. It's about keeping everything moderate as opposed to sort of these not having something going crazy. Yeah.
I'm curious where you're going next. I know Jenna's got some great projects on the go. Zainab, the having, the other side of the doctor that, I mean, as you talked about, it's your own kind of therapy, whether it be the pantomimes that you were doing or other things. What have you got cooking? Can you share any of that with us?
What do you mean out of medicine?
Yeah, I mean, because there's, like you said, you doctors are so intense on the job. You're dealing with such incredible things, and then add what we're going through now in this environment, which just, on top of it, the release. I think when I talk to folks in the medical profession like Jenna, she's got so many cool ideas that are completely, there's a medical link to them, but they're so creative, and all I keep looking at is saying, what a release, what a great way to channel that energy to sort of recharge and just feel really good. So I'm curious. I'm curious what you do on for yourself.
Yeah. I think for me, a huge thing is travel. I absolutely love traveling. I'm hopping on a plane sort of whenever I can, really.
That doesn't happen anytime soon. This is a problem.
No, I know, which is very, very deeply upsetting. But I absolutely can't wait to just go and explore somewhere new again. And I spend a lot of time with sort of my family and with my friends, with Jenna and with the girls, well, whenever we can, because obviously we live in different countries, but we've really kept this really close bond between us, and it's a real sisterhood, and we tend to sort of do a lot of like weekends together, and now we celebrate each other's children's birthdays, and we tend to have a little trip to a cottage together every year and that kind of thing. I think we really cherish those moments. So I just can't wait.
Trying to encourage Zainab to move to Dubai. That's my biggest way to move to Dubai. And I've also had trying to hire her for belly dancing.
Oh God, yes. Yes, I am a secret belly dancer.
Really?
Nobody really gets to see it.
She did a belly dance for my wedding.
Really?
Yeah.
That's like a huge workout. Belly dancing is a huge workout. I mean, that is not an easy dance, doing any of the moves in belly dance. That's hard.
I would agree. It's really tiring actually. And it does feel like a good workout. But I really enjoy it. I think I loved it ever since I was, at school and Shakira started coming out, and I just loved her songs and trying to copy her videos. So actually we used to do a bit of that at uni as well, didn't we, Jenna? We used to have shows and things. So
Jenna was belly dancing as well. The same Jenna here that doesn't have any coordination that she keeps talking about. This would be fun to watch.
I love dancing.
She does have coordination.
I was saying to Zainab, I always thought I was quite a good dancer, and give me a dance floor, I'd be like, right, give me space, I'm ready to dance. And then I watched some terrible, terrible incriminating videos of me at things recently, and I was like, I'm a terrible, horrible dancer. Like, why all these years have I thought I was good? But I continue to dance. I still get on the dance floor. I'm the first one on the dance floor at a party. I'm the last one off. It's wonderful. It's liberating. Yeah. Fantastic. But I'm not very good. And there's absolutely no way anybody wants me to shake my belly. So I will.
First of all, it's not true that you're not a good dancer, but also Jenna is a very good singer.
And she's taking singing lessons. That's Jenna's thing, right?
Lessons, yeah.
And she actually sang at her own wedding. And
it was a fun song. It was a fun song.
It was brilliant. It was amazing. It was great.
See, there's a whole...
Actually, my wedding sounds like it was a whole theatrical performance.
It does. This wedding sounds incredible.
What were we doing?
It sounds like you two have a variety show to put together here. You know, you've got pantomime history, you've got belly dancing, you've got singing. I can see all the pieces, Jenna. I can see all the pieces coming together with the secret project you're working on. Now I see where it's all linking up very clearly.
Don't worry, I am not sure. If I ever wanted, and I'm not, this is not a project I'm working on, but if I ever wanted to make like a medical show with a day in the life, the friends that we have, we would not be short of good footage, to put it that way.
Oh gosh, yeah. Definitely. But I'm not sure they'd be happy for us to show any of it anywhere.
I think it's just, it's just being able to talk to a bunch of like-minded folks, isn't it? Doesn't that just make it work?
Definitely.
As you unwind from things? Because
yes, yeah.
I find things can just get so overwhelming, and it's how it's almost steering clear of those negative personalities and that negative stuff, that it only takes, you can have a bowl of 6 friends who are just awesome, and then that one person who's not a friend just corrosive, and you just need to get back to the friends to make it work.
Absolutely. And I think it's so important, especially in sort of careers that can be quite intensive as well, to have that release or that chat with people. And I think it definitely has helped me over the years and makes me feel a lot better. And I think we all are that for each other, which is really nice. And I think it's really, really important.
But I've always said something actually, which is it's a bit of a loving going on, but I will share this. But I always say, and I still stick to it, that I feel very privileged to be friends with Zainab, because she's like a ray of sunshine. And
the sun is shining in.
Yeah, you can actually see the sunshine through the London apartment. So I would be on a night shift somewhere up north. Zainab would be on a night shift somewhere down south. Yeah. It'd be 3 a.m. in the morning. I would feel like I was dead. I mean, I'd always be with night shifts. And Zainab would be like this burst of energy through the phone, giggling, laughing, sound like she's having a great time. And I was like, I don't understand how anyone's got this energy at 3 a.m. in the morning. So, and you need people like that around you, I think, to help build you up.
But I think also when I get sleep deprived, I do get the giggles quite badly. So that could have something to do with it.
So how do you two suggest we keep our energy and our enthusiasm up when we're constantly facing so many challenges? You've both been through, medical school. You've worked in some pretty challenging areas. You've got great friendships. You've been putting things into practice. What's your DIY guide to just how do you keep that smile on your face through the most horrific of things?
Yeah.
What do you think? What's your advice to folks?
My DIY kit is definitely having a strong sort of support network. I think, being a little bit forgiving of yourself as well. Don't give yourself such a hard time. And rest. You need time away from work. Like you said, James, you need time away from that environment. You need time to actually just enjoy yourself, whether it's traveling or, whatever else you like to do, and to just, fully immerse yourself in that world as well, to then be able to come back and bring your energy back to work. So I think you need a bit of that, that balance, that work-life balance that everybody talks about, but actually I think you have to put that into practice. What do you think?
I mean, everybody is different on how they cope. And I think, one, it's okay to feel a little bit sad now and again. So don't necessarily try and distract yourself from your feelings. Kind of experience it. Allow yourself to feel like that was a tough thing to see, that this is a tough thing to be living through at the moment. Allow yourself the grace of feeling that way. But then you don't want to feel that way for too long. So accept it and move on. So get chatting to people that you know. Do things that you enjoy as far as possible, even if you've got to tweak them because of current situations. Yes. So I think having really strong relationships, like Zainab said, support systems are so important. So talking, but also remembering the art of laughter And now there's a lot of research into the use of, I think I've touched on this with you before, James, laughter yoga, where you effectively force yourself to laugh, and it tricks your body into thinking that you actually do feel good, and it puts you in a better place. It's becoming quite widespread now. The other is singing and dancing and being joyful and remembering things that you did automatically as a child because they were acceptable below the age of 18. And as you get older, it becomes unacceptable because you're an adult. But yet people still get a lot of joy. I'm sure when Zainab's belly dancing, it's probably some of the really good times. She gets the endorphin rush because she thinks she enjoys. Same with just the release of dancing and singing. And I think if I didn't get enough from my support system and from chatting to people that I loved, from exercising, from eating well, then I would probably tap into this little body of research of, right, try and make yourself laugh, or try and watch something that was funny, try and induce that laughter and just get yourself moving or being a bit silly. Yeah. It sounds a little bit radical and a bit new agey, but the research is there to support it. And you think, well, if it works, why not give it a go?
Our friend Patrick over at IBM, he actually runs. He's a wellness guy. That's his role at IBM. Yeah. He does wellness. He runs, amongst all of the other programs, a laughter program where he does Zoom calls and people just laugh.
Oh my God, I love that.
And he said it just makes everyone feel good. And they just have 60 seconds. We'll send you his link. He's a great guy. And he actually...
You need to go to laughter yoga. You don't stop laughing.
You just have to love it. Do you just Zoom call a bunch of strangers and laugh with them?
He puts together sessions, and he had 60 on one session, and they just all went around laughing. And
God, it sounds brilliant. It sounds ingenious.
See, just the thought of it puts a smile on your face.
If anybody is listening, look up laughter yoga. There are tutorials online. You probably feel like an idiot. Take yourself on your own to do it and just give it a go. And it's amazing how you can trick your body into feeling that a bit better. It's like Zainab said, if you've just been to see a patient that's really poorly and you then have to go and put a face on to a patient that has got nothing to do with that sad situation, and you're smiling and you're being gregarious, it's not real, but by the end of that consultation, you actually do feel a bit better. Yeah. You've almost tricked your body into thinking that you're happier than you really were 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And that's all we can hope for, isn't it? Hey, you know what? This has been a lot of fun. Jenna, I'm so glad you got Zainab to join us. She got out of bed at some crazy hour and is sitting there in the sunlight. So are you in London, Zainab?
Yeah. Yes, I am actually.
It's sunny in London. I thought it rains a lot in London. Look at the sun coming in. This is brilliant.
I know. It's actually really lovely today. It was really nice yesterday as well. So I love the sun. I love the warm weather. So I hope it stays like this.
Oh, this is fantastic.
Yes, we're allowed to go for a daily walk, so I might do that.
There you go.
This is the joy of Zooming.
We lost Jenna for a second. I've lost her on what I'm listening to, so we're gonna get her to come back on. But Zainab, really quick one: do you have to wear a mask when you're walking in London these days? I've lost both of you on my side. Hold on, where's the audio gone? It's muted back. Hopefully it's coming back here. Oh, there we go. It's come back.
I can hear you. Oh.
Yeah, for a second. I don't know why. This happens once in a while.
Interesting.
It just happened for a second, but so you're able to go out on a walk, which is great. Do you have to wear a mask, or are you guys mask free?
No, we're mask free actually.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I think it's up to the discretion of whoever is going for a walk. So but you will see that it's definitely the culture is shifting and there's more people wearing masks now. But you don't have to.
Jenna and I, if we even go out for a jog, we've got to put on our masks, and that is, I gotta say, Jenna's nodding. It's not fun. It's not fun doing a little jog with a mask on. Even I sometimes wear my bandana cover over it, and it's horrible. It's horrible. But what can you do? Got to follow the rules.
No, I know. You've got to follow the rules. And I think here as well, people try and sort of stay away from each other and keep a bit of distancing physically. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I think I'm definitely noticing more people are coming out now a little bit. So I think people have had enough.
A lot of people will ask questions and say, should we wear masks? And I keep saying, it's the law. In Dubai, it's the law.
Yes.
Wear them.
Just follow the rules. Exactly.
And if you're going to wear them, But I mean, Zainab were talking about this yesterday, just to make sure that you're doing it safely. So you discard them after single use, or you put them on a hot wash if it's fabric, and you take them off on the sides and don't touch the front.
Yeah.
But we have to wear them whether we want to or not, James, on those runs.
I know, that's it.
Exactly.
And that's the way we go. And it's actually kind of cool, because I was out this morning at about 6:30, and the number of people washing cars with masks on, and I was kind of smiling behind my own mask going, this is good.
Yeah.
At least people are following the rules.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think also it's not to be falsely reassured by the fact that I'm wearing a mask, like that means I'll be fine. It's washing your hands afterwards, which is really, really important, because then if you don't wash your hands and touch your face after you take your mask off, you're technically good at giving yourself the virus anyway. So it's just, trying to be careful, like Jenna said, not to keep touching your mask and to wash your hands.
Well, Jenna, we do have to do that COVID update show. We did one at the very beginning of all this, and we do need to do another one, just sort of where are we at? What do we know? It's funny.
Oh my gosh, how much it will have changed from that first show.
Constant changes.
And it's very interesting. But this has been a fun morning. I really appreciate, Jenna, you getting Zainab out of bed. And Zainab, it was great to meet you.
Thanks, Jenna, for getting me out of bed.
I've got no remorse.
And I can't wait till you get to fly back into Dubai, and we get to meet you. So this will be a lot of fun.
Yes, and hopefully we can meet up in person for a nice cup of tea or something. That'll be lovely.
Well, and Jenna does live very close to one of my favorite restaurants. So, she said she can actually smell it. Din Tai Fung is pretty much on her balcony. So this is, I'm looking forward to this.
Sounds amazing. But yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really, really enjoyed it myself.
Well, you know what?
Lovely to meet you.
I look forward to doing it all again real soon. And on that note, we're going to close off the show. You have been listening to Doc Talk this week with Jenna Burton and Zainab Awan. And you know what? We talked about all sorts of things. I think the key thing that we talked about, though, is how to keep your mind sorted and how to think clearly about what's going on around you. Zainab's a pediatrician. Talked to us a whole lot about her career and how she got there. And of course, Jenna Burton always has something interesting to add to the story. Singer, dancer, who knows next what we're going to find out. This has been Podaholiks, Doc Talk. If you want to get a hold of us, Podaholiks with a K at gmail.com, www.podaholiks.com, and of course, Podaholiks with a K across all of the socials. Talk to you again soon.